The corridor smells like boiled cabbage and floor polish. A portrait of Honecker watches you from peeling paint. A clerk stamps your file thick, already heavier than it should be, and slides it back without meeting your eyes. Your party pin catches the fluorescent light like a promise you can't take back. This is your life, level by level, inside the Stasi. The entry-level party member. Where ambition meets a moral crossroads. Your desk sits under a buzzing lamp in a district office off Frankfurter Allee, close enough to hear the tram bells through a cracked window. You type memos on thin paper. You log incoming reports. You carry sealed folders to a steel cabinet with 2 locks and a key you're told not to copy. Names blur into categories: hostile, negative, unreliable, to be clarified. Sometimes you're sent downstairs to file photographs. A man entering a church, a student handing out leaflets, a coworker laughing too loudly. A senior officer shows you how to read between lines. A hesitating signature, a missing stamp, a date that doesn't match a shift schedule. You watch a conversation in a side room, coffee, cigarettes, and a calm voice explaining that a university place can vanish with one phone call. You tell yourself it's just paperwork. You tell yourself it's temporary. You tell yourself the state needs order. At night you wash ink off your fingers, but the names don't come off because you're learning that power can be filed, indexed, and locked away like winter coats. The local operative, where loyalty is your ticket to trust. You're given a ring of keys and a new responsibility: the safe apartment. A plain door in Prenzlauer Berg, lace curtains, a radio always on low, and an ashtray that never seems empty. You arrive early to check the peephole, the phone line, the cupboard where the microphone kit is stored, in a shoebox labeled spare bulbs. You inventory what matters: 2 cups, 3 chairs, 1 clean tablecloth, fresh cigarettes, and a bottle of corn for the talkative ones. The informants start coming. Inoffiziell Mitarbeiter with nervous hands and practiced smiles. You take notes on standardized forms: date, contact, reliability code, then seal the pages in envelopes that smell like glue and fear. You learn what buys loyalty: a travel permit, extra meat coupons, a better flat assignment, a warning before a workplace inspection. You tell yourself you're protecting your family. You tell yourself everyone lies. You tell yourself the truth is whatever survives the report. At home you kiss your spouse with the same mouth that says, "Comrade," in the dark, and you realize the double life isn't a mask, it's a second skin. The district supervisor. When power begins to erode personal ethics. Now you run a district team, and the map on your wall is marked with pins instead of hopes. A school director, a factory foreman, a pastor, a theater troupe, each has a file number and a surveillance plan. Tail schedules in 2-hour blocks, camera positions, listening posts, and which IM gets invited for coffee. The phones in your office ring in short bursts, like alarms that never fully stop. You sign orders that move quietly through the system. A travel application delayed, for review. A job transfer, for collective needs. A lecture cancelled because a venue suddenly requires repairs. You coordinate with the Volkspolizei when a protest is expected at Alexanderplatz, and you sit in meetings where language turns people into problems to be managed. You tell yourself you're only supervising. You tell yourself you don't choose outcomes. You tell yourself the file is the truth. But you watch how a single checkbox can shrink someone's world to the size of your desk, and you understand power here isn't loud, it's administrative, like a paper cut that never stops bleeding. You've learned to file people, to buy loyalty, to steer lives with signatures. The next rung isn't about watching the city. It's about commanding it and surviving the eyes inside your own walls. Level 4: the directorate chief. Where you stop collecting information and start shaping reality. The carpet in your corridor is thicker now, meant to swallow footsteps. Your office sits behind 2 checkpoints in Normannenstrasse, with a direct line that never goes through the switchboard. On the credenza, a gray phone, a red phone, a stamped schedule, and a folder of operative priorities that updates daily. You start mornings with a briefing packet, overnight intercept summaries, surveillance anomalies, travel requests to approve or bury, then a conference where men recite numbers like prayers. Recruitments, terminations, neutralizations, all in neat columns. Your signature moves resources. 2 additional observation teams for a church youth group in Lichtenberg. A new wiretap authorization keyed to a specific exchange and line pair. Extra film and batteries for a technical unit, logged out on form 17/3 with serial numbers. You tell yourself the system would wobble without you. You tell yourself you're only allocating, not harming. You tell yourself the state is a machine and you're just tightening bolts. But when you start deciding what becomes a threat, you realize you aren't managing files anymore, you're editing people's lives with a rubber stamp. Level 5: The Close Confidant to Mielke. Where proximity becomes its own kind of prison. The air in the minister's anteroom is always warm, always stale, thick with cigarette smoke and polished wood. Your chair faces the door, and you learn to stand before you're asked. Meetings happen behind it, short bursts of voices, the scrape of a chair, the soft click of a lighter, then an aide slips you a note with 3 lines. A name, a date, an instruction. You don't write much here. You carry. You confirm. You make sure the right paper lands on the right desk before lunch. Now the danger isn't the public. It's proximity. You know which directorate chief drinks too much. Which colonel keeps a West radio hidden in a desk drawer. Which deputy is angling for a promotion with a whispered accusation. You tell yourself the minister trusts you. You tell yourself you can steer him away from mistakes. You tell yourself you're safe because you're close. But closeness means the knife reaches you first because the hand holding it already knows your schedule. You climb until the building feels less like an office and more like a body, corridors as arteries, files as blood, phones as nerves. The higher you go, the quieter the violence becomes. It arrives as ink, as stamps, as procedures. You can't retire from what you've authorized. You can only live with the sound of paper turning, like a verdict that never finishes being read.